text, what is the effects that you want. Nothing is ever straightforward, nothing is ever got a specific equivalent. You have to work on it. Sometimes we are giving impossible tasks to the fore. What to do with this? A bit of creativity, and it's. And now I'm ready for your questions. No questions.
Could you just go over again what you did in the case of the song with Cleary's Clock? Did you use it in English? Did you translate the rest of the song and use that bit in English?
Yes, I actually. I have the Italian here, not the English. But what I did, the lyrics of the songs you don't translate because they are well-known American songs. And you follow until these Dublinese setting lyrics kick in. So I'm not sure if I found the right place, but this was. I'll be searching everywhere just to find someone to care. I've been looking every day. I know I'm going to find a way. This is all in the Italian, as is. Nothing's going to stop me now. I will find a way somehow. And then you suddenly go, starò lì ad aspettarti all'orologio di Cleary. So it becomes clear. You couldn't leave that in English because it's not the text of the song, and if you left it in English, as I said, the Italian mightn't know. If they know the song, they know there's something odd, but you have to mark it and make it stand down. And there are several cases like that. So just fine-tuning and be also attentive as to the value that some of the words or all the words are in the text. Why are those words there? Why do they mention Cleary's Clock? What the purpose here is to adapt to Dublin, stimulate the public to identify with all the songs. There is, at the beginning of the commitments, there is this analogy with Dublin working class, who are the black people of Europe. And that's conveyed through soul music, which is the music genre they concentrate on. And to reinforce this point, they add their own lyrics. There is the night train start going wherever the night train goes. There are the lyrics of the night train. And then you find, the next station will be Kilester, and then you move on to another station. So it's all meant to strengthen the value of the songs. The songs are typically songs sung by black people. If the Irish are the black people of Europe, we sing their songs, but we sing them in our way. We add what is meaningful to the working class in Dublin.
Would you use a different typeface or italics if you're using a place name in Dublin? No,
place names are place names, so you just
know that'd be something different.
They're not
look it up if they want.
They exist.
Do you have the same dislike of endnotes as footnotes?
Unheard of in fiction.
And there is one. There's an Italian mystery writer. He always puts the endnotes at the end. But again, he keeps it to minimum. But
who's this? It doesn't matter. I thought you'd say the name that I didn't catch. It doesn't matter.
No.
Yeah, you could do that. But if the text requires it, and in a work of fiction, I think it's very rare that you can't slip it in. If there is a historical reference, yes, you put an endnote and then. But it's finding that little number on the page that sends you somewhere else that I think breaks the flow of your enjoyment of the text. So yeah, if it's necessary, there are ways, but can't too many.
Apart from proper names, did you consider keeping any English language words in the translation? Not
specifically. I I honestly can't remember. Maybe I did, but nothing comes to mind.
You're able to translate everything?
Yes, it depends what conveys best. It depends. The function of that word in that sentence, in that piece of text, and see the value and the weight that it has in the English text and how to convey that in Italian. Sometimes, yes, you might replace an English word with another that Italians think is the correct word for that thing. It happens because language travels in strange ways. I know when jogging first became common, for some reason in Italian it was called footing. So if you were jogging, you were footing. It's absolutely absurd. Unfortunately now, again, the world is getting smaller and smaller, so the same words finally penetrate. And there is a lot of English used in Italian in terms of the novelties, the selfies and all to do with technology. So the languages are getting closer, so you have to be careful what you use, but careful also words that are, we call them false friends, that sound as though they are, but are not. And sometimes, even if you know very well that what they are, sometimes you can be tricked, you can be pulled aside, so attention.
The translations have been done shortly after the books were published, or would it have been because of the popularity of the films?
Yeah, there was a bit of that. I mean, Irish culture exploded in Italy during Italian 90, when the Italian team, the Irish team went to play in Italy. They reached the quarterfinals. It was the time when U2 were becoming famous. So suddenly everything Irish became popular, and I can tell you the publishing days, but they were later. When the proposal of publishing the commitments was accepted, the van had already been published and already been nominated for the Booker, so there was a delay. Something which now is unheard of. Now all the rights of any author which is well known and appreciated are sold in Frankfurt even before the book is published in the original sometimes. Sometimes they want the original and the translations to come out at the same time, especially in countries like Holland, where everyone reads English. So they don't need a translation. Sometimes, publishers' agreement are such that the Dutch translation comes out first. Otherwise, they wouldn't have such a good market. And when the second or third book by Dan Brown was about to be published, they gathered many of their translation in a bunker type situation in Milan, where they had to work. They worked in shifts. They had to sign a confidentiality agreement. They couldn't tell anyone what they were doing, what they were dealing with. They couldn't bring anything out. This is all hype, obviously. It's all mounting publicity, create expectation. But the book market is completely changed from when I could go to a bookshelf, find a book, find it was brilliant, suggest it to a publisher, and go on like this. So it couldn't happen now. There was a delay there.
Do you think the translations are not as good? It sounded like they were a bit rushed, or they were acceptable?
There is a lot of pressure. I had other sections that I haven't used from my talk. One of them is the pain of doing this job, and one of them is the deadlines. One of them is after you've finished, you sent it all off, and a month later, you get the proofs. Find that there is a copy editor that has changed things here and there. Very often it's someone who understands English a bit. It's someone who works as a freelance, who has to demonstrate that they have done something, so they have to change bits. They have no sympathy for the fluency of the text. You get these proofs, and maybe you're busy with the life. Could you please send them back within 3 days? And it's a PDF file, which you can't rechange back. You have to write it. So that was one of the more painful things to deal with. Deadlines and copy editors. But there are joys, there are a lot of pleasant things. One of them is the writer. I probably could never be a writer, but I sit there with a book, I translate it, I'm a writer. And that's a very privileged position. There were the students who came over here to interview Roddy Doyle because they were writing a thesis on him, and some came to me. If they were Italian, they came and talked to me, and that was a very pleasant way of keeping in with the books. They got to read the books first through my translations, they liked them, they decided to write a thesis. So, it goes both ways. Robin, I just recognize you, and you have a question at hand.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you just about that. Did you get much feedback from the Italian readership, and if so, what did they say? Did they feel the translation worked? Because I'm slightly in awe of trying to translate Dublin Argot into anything.
Yeah, I think it worked. I think it worked. Obviously, no one came to me and told me your work is shite. Nobody complained.
A shite.
It was published in Italian in 98, so I forgot. But no, generally positive, generally. Like I can't give you any examples, but they were well received, to the point that well, the publishing history is a bit complicated because the publisher who first took on the commitments had signed the contract for the 3 books. Then it went bust. They paid me for 1 of the books, not for the second. Unfortunately, I haven't started the 3rd yet. They probably, I can't remember if they probably didn't pay the rights to Roddy Doyle's agent for Europe, so it ended up in disaster. But the nice other side was that the rights were bought by a big publishing group in Milan, very respectable, very involved. They liked my translations, they asked me to translate the van. So there's the answer. The market answer was yes, we like it. The van was my first book for them, and the second one they asked me to translate was Trainspotting. So I think something worked in the vernacular to persuade, to make them think that I was the right person to do it.
Yeah, another question I was going to ask as well is if you did have to localise it to a particular Italian dialect, which one would you have chosen? I noticed you mentioned Neapolitan, or was it something that was just completely
Neapolitan would be my fall back on dialect, but you can't. But you can soften it. So a trick I use, because colloquial language has its problem, because it has a very narrow spectrum, all this slightly below standard linguistic register. I used to think of people I knew who spoke in the register I wanted, so slightly off, slightly jargony, without being dialect, without being incorrect. And that was my test. I could hear their voice and say, would he say that? Yes. Or not, it would great. Then when you read the book at the end, when you've finished it, put it down, let it rest if you had the time, because you don't always have the time. Pick it up again and see, does it work? Other things. It's fatal to go back and reread it. A bit as I said with Tom and Jerry. You probably redo it all. The Snapper is a particular case in point, because the Snapper has 2 translations in Italian. One was the one I did with the original, not so good publisher. In the meantime, the other publisher, I got it translated by someone else. The Commitments was also republished, but it was my translations re-edited by me for the new publisher. So there I could do all the things I would have wanted to do. The Snapper is painful in both versions in Italian, I have to confess. My copy was edited by someone, as I said, that changed half of the things and not the other half. So you lost the continuity, you lost the language that you had taken carefully, balancing, carefully trying to use the same lexicon without variating too much. The other translation, it's one in this volume, I picked it up recently. Now, my career moved on, and something I do now regularly is translate and interpret for the rugby authorities, since Italy came into the Six Nations. There is a line Snapper where they talk about majorettes. And my colleague, who obviously didn't know anything about sport, rugby, whatever, translated. Well, the majorettes, are they those that sing and dance in America when they play rugby games? This was a stabbing in the back. Just, it should never have been done. But I don't know if I've answered your question. More or less. Going back is difficult.
About the issue of the word getting smaller. So now basically you can just Google Clary's clock.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there an interaction between this fact, the digitalization of information, of Wikipedia and everything, and translation, because something is easier now, can reach easier, or there is not involvement?
I mean, yes, I suppose you could find your information. You could never find why I had for Sophia Loren.
Okay.
Guaranteed. For the rest, yes, the culture is more accessible. So Clary's clock. Clary's clock is not a problem of translation. The problem was the jump between. It's in the lines of the song. Graphically, is block capitals. It's there. So you just suddenly jump from English to Italian, the same as the text of the song jumps from the lyrics of the proper song to the invented lyrics. So it's not the concept of Clary's clock, and then it's explained in the text what it is, that only the culture is of people from country go there, and so on. So it's very well explained, very handily. But yeah, more information certainly is available, so you don't need less and less to go to the author, really. But there are people who approach the translation thinking they have to talk to the author and see what he actually meant or what she actually wanted. Not my style, but it would be good.
Where did you find Faculty?
Cafoni.
What is it?
Cafoni, which is, it means people from the country. It means also people with no manners, but as long as you know, it's correct, that's fine.
Somebody from Kerry, I object.
You're one of the best mannered people I know.
I wanted to ask, can you give us some idea of how much time you typically spend translating?
How long is a day? Or how long is a piece of string? You could take forever. I learned very early on in all the areas of translation where I worked that a translation is never completed but abandoned. When you start going back and back and back and back again, to be perfect, you need to work at it, let it rest, detach yourself from it, go back with a fresh mind. But you don't have the time, and the deadlines are getting shorter.
You're under pressure from your publisher.
Absolutely, yes. The deadline was the third pain I had on my list.
So are we talking months or?
Oh yes. I turned down my last contract because they wanted me to do the Dead Republic at the time from November to March, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't take it on. I mean, you have a life. You can't sit and do 8 hours a day where you need all your wits about you, and you need constant freshness of approach, and you need to concentrate. Other stuff you could, commercial stuff you could, because you just churn it out. If you want to do a proper creative job on a good novel, you can't. So rather than find myself more and more under pressure, I prefer to say. Anything else?
Well, just in terms of the two films, Commitments and Snapper and maybe there's been a third, there was probably an Italian translation at the base of it?
Italian tend to dub.
They do dub?
They do dub,
Right.
yes.
What did you think then of their interpretation?
Oh, I have no idea.
You've never been asked to?
No, I wasn't involved. It's two separate industries.
Yes, of course.
But
It would be interesting to compare because...
Yeah, it would. But because there is no script, if I go to the cinema and I have to sit there and judge every word, I don't go to the cinema. And I probably saw, I'm sure I saw the movies here. I live here, I've been living since 1979, so I saw them in English. But it's interesting that when the movies, there were 3 movies, all three books became 3 movies. When they were released in the States, they were released with a glossary because the language is so different. And then I was thinking, going back to Bosco, how would a reader in Montreal or in Wellington, how do they make a Bosco? So there is no mediation there. What's the reaction? What is Bosco?
Then there's the same demand, if you like, on young Irish, because the context there is more youth language as well.
Yes.
When they look at American films, whatever sort, the context displayed in picture has to help you to understand, and the age groups.
In pictures, yes, but for the commitments, it's the accents of the actors. It's the way of.
In the rhythm and that, yes.
But as we are more exposed to American culture, although I still have difficulty watching a movie on TV if it's trans or American accent. I put on the subtitles now that I can because it grates in my ears. But the exposure doesn't work the other way. So they thought it right to release a glossary with it. And there are times when some books are translated in 2 different ways for the British and the American market. If it's an important book, they expect good sales, they request an adaptation even on the spelling sometimes, and sometimes a retranslation targeted to the market. So even speaking the same language isn't always the same.
In the States, Bosco is a chocolate drink. They did have subtitles
In
America.
for the movies, but for the book,
They translated them.
who knows?
Well, for the commitments, they had English translation.
They,
From
yes.
American English from
Right,
Japanese.
and subtitles.
Yeah.
Well, I know there was a glossary because I was given it at some point when doing mine. But so translation is more than one meaning. You can translate within the same language and still have done some problems. Any other curious minds? In which case, thank you very much.